Hello again and welcome back, my friends. This is your loremonger continuing my theory from last week about the relationship between Arendelle and the Northuldra. This week, I want to chat about Ahtohallan, the goddess herself. As you can imagine, there is a huge question floating around the Disney community. Why is Ahtohallan frozen? And why does Elsa have ice powers? Before we can answer that, we have to answer the question, who is Ahtohallan? Because it's not just an island. While I was researching this video, I found a post that addresses this question. Essentially, it suggests that if Ahtohallan had settled in a volcano, for instance, that Elsa might have had fire powers instead. Intrinsically, Ahtohallan is unlikely to have any particular preference for any one element. In any case, Elsa's powers come directly from Ahtohallan rather from any of the elements specifically. Now, I do not agree. As I mentioned before, when people try to understand the history of Disney movies, they over-intellectualize it way too much, and they forget that a lot of these stories come from pagan cultures. First of all, the name Ahtohallan itself can be translated as something like frozen sea god or god who dwells in frozen waters. According to pagan literature, frozen sea god is probably closer. That being said, Ahtohallan is a goddess of water, so of course it makes sense that she settled at the northernmost point of Arendelle's waters. There is a 0 chance that a goddess of water would settle in a volcano. In many cultures, water is actually considered the source of all life. I've discussed this before. Think primordial waters. So that means Ahtohallan isn't just the goddess of water, but she is also a goddess of life. Also, the idea that Ahtohallan doesn't have a preference for any one element is not really quite right. Ahtohallan is literally the embodiment of water. She's not a manifestation like Nock, but the water of life itself. Elsa's powers are therefore a direct manifestation of her connection to Ahtohallan. In ancient cultures, there were actually more than just the 4 elements. Spirit is also one of the elements on the pentacle, but honestly, nature has so much more going on. All of the elements were made to balance each other. Consider the structure of Final Fantasy magic. This explains why the elements needed the 5th spirit to restore balance. If you look very closely at Elsa's connections, the 2 spirits that Elsa connected with most were Bruni and Nock, the fire and the water spirit. Elsa shares a natural connection with Bruni, the fire spirit, because they're elemental opposites, but her deepest connection is actually with Nock, and that's because of her innate bond with water itself, specifically primordial waters. This also explains why she was able to give Olaf a soul. She wasn't just building a snowman, she was creating a familiar. Also, how she created this big guy and these 1,000 little guys. And as she told her sister, a bridge has 2 sides. If Elsa is the embodiment of the goddess, then it stands to reason that Anna is the grounding force of humanity that keeps the balance. Back to my point, though, about Ahtohallan. Considering everything we learned in Frozen 2 about the Northuldra, Ahtohallan, and the elements themselves, the 5th spirit seems to be the physical manifestation of primordial water in its solid state. As I mentioned before, some theorists suggest that Elsa's powers are a form of Ice 11 because it forms in hexagonal crystals, and therefore they think it directly relates back to the scroll. Scientists also believe that Ice 11 is a foundational element in the formation of planets. This reinforces my idea that Ahtohallan is actually a primordial goddess with influence over all the elements. And that raises my next question. How did Iduna even know how to call to Ahtohallan during the battle? This is a very specific call to Ahtohallan herself. The song clearly isn't just a lullaby. As I will explain next week, the song is actually a direct invocation to the goddess herself. It's almost as if Iduna had been taught ancient secrets without being told they were ancient secrets. Something I really hope they answer in Frozen 3 is, as the descendant of one of the oldest Northuldran families, Did Iduna have a deeper connection to her traditions than we originally thought? Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you can be back next week. I can't wait to share with you what I found out about this song. See you next time, guys!